Instructors Marshall Larry's in, and I want to thank you all for coming out this year to our SR71 event. And we are truly honored to have the crew members that made this beautiful airplane fly and work here to talk about their experiences. And I'm going to hand it over to Jerry Glasser, who's our moderator for this panel. Sure.
Thanks very much. You thought this was going to be a cool SR71 presentation, right? You really thought that. Wishful thinking. This is really a 90-minute timeshare presentation. we had some great land in Hawaii. Robby Butterfield is my CFO. He's got his phone. So we have a special one-day sale. If you sign up, this is serious. If you sign up, you get a chance to fly the new Airbus 480, which is single engine. We have two pods. We have a coach. We have a coach which has one parachute but no toilet. And then we have a first class which has a toilet. Now, if you don't sign up, unfortunately we fly you home economy class. And bags will fly. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we want to get right to it. Welcome to March. We're so joyed to be here. This is such a great place. And Greg has done a magnificent job modifying, and we came in, we were just awestruck by the museum. I don't do podiums very well, but let's look at what we're going to do. We want to get right to it and get you interactive and involved, hopefully. There's no question that can go unanswered. We only have one lie. We'll keep that lie repeated, so we'll see what happens. But a brief introduction for the panels. We'll do a little historical comment to show you where we went, and maybe why we went, and probably this will give you a little impetus for questions. We can always come back to the slides. We can always go back and look at the slides. So we're going to Q&A, and then at the end we'll have a little fun, hopefully with Celine Dion. So let's get right to the panels. We'll do a brief introduction, and then we'll get started, and we really solicit your questions. No question is off limits. We didn't poop, we peed, how we peed, whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about. So, we have a great panel. It spans the entire program. From Tony, who was a U2SR guy, to John Manzi, who flew in the Persian Gulf. We have the best maintenance people here. So, Tony, would you take it away, please?
Hi. I joined the Air Force in '52 to avoid the Army draft. And after cadet training, I went to into F-84s, and my roommate was Francis Gary Powers, and he disappeared one day. I wondered where he went, CIA. And they asked me if I wanted to fly a plane, and no idea, they wouldn't tell me a thing, and I volunteered. So I got into U2 and flew for 9 years there, and then went into the SR71 program. Now, how's that for a high school grad? And so I was there, stationed at Beale in '66, and retired in '73, and just had a great time, and I appreciate your taxes being paid. And you can ask any questions later. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Floyd Jones. I joined the Air Force in 1966, and my first assignment was at Beale Air Force Base in '67. I stayed at Beale for approximately 2.5 years. Then I was assigned to Talk-Fleet Thailand on F-105s. And then I returned back to Beale, stayed another 7 years. I went to Germany for 3 years with F-4s. I went back to Beale. I stayed at Beale for 4 years. Then I went to Palmdale, Southern California, and flight test on the SR. Retired in '86, went to work for Lockheed on the SR and the U2. The SR went away, I went back on the U2 and the F-117. The SR came back on reactivation. I was assigned at Edwards Air Force Base until the program closed. Went back on the U2 for a while and retired.
Hi, good morning. I'm John Manzi. I'm from Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm really happy to be with you here this morning. I entered the Air Force in 1978. I was graduated from Purdue University and commissioned second lieutenant, and off I went to the Air Force and running after my dreams. I started out in the F-111 and did a tour in the United Kingdom. I flew there for a couple of years and had an opportunity to jump over to a version of the Phantom. So I flew a tour in RF-4s down in Texas, which was also a great tour. But I always had a vision for myself, and that'd be to get into the Blackbird one day. And in 1985, I was accepted in. And it was a combination of you had to have the right credentials, you had to have the right experiences, and then you had to have a lot of luck. Because the Air Force is a big place, and where I was in the very latter years of the program, there weren't that many airplanes flying. We didn't take that many crews. So you needed good luck, and you needed a lot of pull, and it worked out great. I had a great tour, and went on and finished a career in the Air Force, and now in the defense industry, doing some work with the space business down here in Southern California. So I'm enjoying it very much. But when I meet young people, I tell them that when I was in college and I was a Sea Cadet, and I saw this picture of a strange-looking black airplane hanging up in our attachment. And my commandant and cadets came up behind me and said, "You know, there's a navigator in that airplane." That's all it took. So that was my dream, and if you can envision it, tell the young people is that it can happen. Thanks.
My name is Robby Butterfield, and in 1973 I went to the Air Force. I bumped around, they sent me here and there, and I ended up in Guam, and then I left Guam. I went into Beale, and when I drove down the gate, there was an SR taking off, and I said, I'm going to work on that. So much to think about. So I stayed in the program from 82 to 89. I left there and I went to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, my 8 10s. And after that I got a little shorter, and I went back to school, got my degree as a mechanical engineer, thanks to the SR program, because there was projects I worked and they encouraged me to go to school. So I encourage everybody to go back to school and get your degree. And I worked for the Navy, learned a whole bunch of acronyms, and then retired. Now I work in my house and I travel and get to school. And I thank you for coming.
I'm Jerry Glasser, and Greg picked me up at the, excuse me, sorry. Greg picked me up at the local Wendy's down the street, so I'm a housing project guy from New York City. Never in my dreams did I possibly think I'd fly the SR-71. All I wanted to do was graduate from high school and avoid the cops, seriously. And I had a couple of good deputies, and as Robbie said, went to school, took me 10 years to get my master's. I'm an F4 and F5 driver, most of us are Vietnam people. And a good guy named Tom Pugh, I was working at Palmdale and Edwards as a non-test pilot. And there are good things and bad things to that. And I just happened to hit a colonel named Tom Pugh. He took me across the runway at Palmdale, and he said, "Why don't you come in and hang with me?" And luckily, I made an application. 6 months later, someone got hurt, Jack, and I became an SR-71 trainer, and I just absolutely, I keep my hands really. I just didn't realize that I could be that fortunate coming out of that housing project. Seriously, I'm very, very fortunate. Okay, there are some other people here. This is our first panel, so just to let you know who's here. Where's Buzz? Buzz is sitting. Okay, Buzz Carpenter is the chief docent at the Smithsonian. He was, you always hate your instructors and then you love your instructors. When crap happens, you love your instructors. And these were the best, I thought. And Buzz was my instructor. He's the chief docent at the Smithsonian. Where's BC? BC sitting here somewhere. BC Thomas. He was my other instructor, and he taught me quite a bit, but he's the only pilot to fly the RB-57, the U-2, and the SR-71. He was the only person in the Air Force. And we have a lot of knowledge here that you can talk personally to. They're really cool. And obviously Jack Bezacqua was my instructor, and we have a special affinity for New York City. I'll let Jack take care of that when he makes the panel presentation. It was very interesting. We were in the simulator, and we were both shocked at what we were about to learn about each other, I think, in terms of schooling. So, and where's Ed Ewing? Ed's here someplace. Ed Ewing is the world record holder. He flew the last flight from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. Hour and 4 minutes. Interesting, across the country in an hour and 4 minutes. So there's a lot of wealth of information here. Besides the maintenance, but not only the maintenance people, we have Don Campbell, who's the chief of maintenance. The maintenance guys are great, just absolutely great. Okay, that's Ed Director. He can talk about that later. And where's our leader? General Halloran, he's our leader. We always want to recognize him. He's a wealth of information. Okay, I don't think Greg is Bill here or not? Okay, we had a special introduction. I don't think Gilman is here, so we're going to go by these. We had an introduction, but I don't think he shows up. Dutch 5-1 flew the first SR. We're going to welcome him. And if he happens to stop in, we'll stop and welcome. He was the first SR-71 pilot. Okay. If you only remember a couple slides, remember these, please. We as crew only rented the airplane. Maintenance owned the airplane. They owned the airplane. And they were the absolute best. The absolute best. They demanded excellence, and we never pre-flight an airplane. Whether it was maintenance contractors, Lockheed people, we walked out, and when the 22-year-old guy handed us the 781, it was ready to go. We knew it was ready to go. I never pre-flighted. No crew member here ever pre-flighted an SR-71, ever. That's how good the maintenance was. Okay, any 135 drivers here? Anybody raise your hands, please. Any 135s? We love you. Why do we love you? We love you. If we don't have a driver with that tank, we're a 1,500-mile-an-hour supersonic jet around a flagpole. We cannot survive without those guys. On time, every time, halfway around the world, 11,000 miles, don't talk to anybody, 5 refuelings, and every time they rolled out 2.5 miles right ahead of you, and you talked to nobody. That's how good the program was. Everybody knew what they were doing, every single one of them, and they were great. We couldn't survive that. Okay, so let's begin quickly, and we'll take about 5 minutes, and then get into the Q&A, and please be very vivacious with your questions. What year is it? Where were you in 1959? After you weren't born, probably. Private school, okay? Okay? How many people remember the Excel? It runs the Ford Motor Company out of business. That's the best Chevy could do. That's the best the auto industry could do. The very best. The wipers are going this way. And sometimes they didn't work. There is a 1959 design, ladies and gentlemen, and it is still state-of-the-art for propulsion. We have not built a better propulsion system. And there's a gentleman sitting over here. Where's Pete Long? Stand up, Pete. There, if you want to talk about propulsion and thermal, there is the man to talk to. Okay, there were 4 basic models. This is generic. We had the A-12, which came through operational for 1 year, the M-21, the YF-12, and then the SR-71 over a period of 5 to 6 years. Temperature was the key problem for the airplane, propulsion and temperature. We can talk about that later, but how many people took a turkey at 375? Got that right? Double that temperature, that was the average temperature for the airplane. The average temperature of the airplane is around 550. Wind speed is 620. Internal parts get up to 2,000. The thermal problems were monstrous. Okay, the A-12 flew from 67 to 68 operational. There's the titanium goose, the trainer. We had 3 interceptors built for a limited program. The ops missions for the SR-71 were from 1968 to 1990 when it retired and then went to NASA. And then the B model was the high-tide airplane, the B model trainer. So that gives you some picture. Okay, we had 50 total built, just to keep you up to date. We had 18 A models, 8 were lost. We had 32 SR models, 12 were lost, 15, 20. So that gives you a picture. Most of them were lost at the beginning of the program, most of them. So we only had 50 airplanes total, 50 airplanes total made for the entire program. Okay, there's the world operational areas. Kadena in the Far East, in Okinawa, Japan. Mildenhall in England, which took care of Northern Europe and Med. And at Abil, which was our training facility, we flew missions to both Cuba and Nicaragua, and also missions to Russia. But we never overflew the Soviet Union. There was no direct overflights of the Soviet Union. So we'll talk about the three areas: Kadena in Okinawa, Milton Hall in England, and Beale Air Force Base, which was our training area. Okay, so from Vietnam, which Tony is involved with, to the Arab-Israeli War. Where's Jim Shelton? Jim, where are you?
Over here. Hi, Jim.
Jim Shelton? Jim Shelton, where are you? Jim Shelton flew an Arab-Israeli War, 11,000 miles, so 6 or 5 refuelings, Jim? 6 refuelings. Did you talk to anybody? You just hooked up to the tanker, right? 11,500 miles, 6 refuelings, don't talk to anybody except the tanker. Good morning, where's my 80,000 pounds of gas? That's how good the program was. Okay, we kind of ring the Soviet Union for their naval facilities, and we can come back to these slides if you have a question. I can pop these slides back. You look at Petropavlovsk in the north, Vladivostok, Murmansk, and the Eastern Europe. But this is where we were. So you have some picture. There's Murmansk, a very exciting mission. If you make the turn, if you make the big turn here on a good day, this is the Novaya Zemlya, this is the nuclear test facility and the dump for the old Soviet Union. If the visibility was good as you made the turn, you could see the island. You physically see that island. It was an amazing sight in the northern Atlantic. Okay, and we did not overfly the Soviet Union. You can talk about that later, which Q&A. We went into the Baltic. The Swedes had some fun. They used to come up and top us, and Dickens would come up and try to intercept us. It was a very interesting mission. Okay, so this is where we went, so you can get a picture of what was going on. Nicaragua, Cuba, we both flew peripheral and overflights of both countries. There are people here, I think BC was one who boomed Havana when Fidel was kind of upset. And the Mideast, for Lebanon, Israel, obviously Jim flew in Egypt and Syria, we flew in Lebanon, Libya. So this is a worldwide picture of where the program went. Mac McKendry, where are you, sir? Mac flew the Persian Gulf mission, 11 hours out of Okinawa, 5 refuelings. Did you talk to anybody? Didn't talk to anybody. Just flew 11 hours, and flew the mission and flew home. Never talked to anybody. Okay, Pacific Theater, we've all had great missions, we've all had emergencies, we've all had boneheads, we've all had screw-ups. We're humans, we've all had screw-ups. Okay? Maintenance has saved us, my RSO has saved me. I had the pleasure of flying John Manzi's first sortie, which was my last sortie. Great mission, and we're still alive. That's the key, we're still alive. Okay, so here's some things you can talk about: inlets, engines, people, mission navigation. If you want to know where we went and how we went, I can go back and look at the maps for you. Okay, so here's a picture of the airplane where the tanks are. I think I'll leave that up, and what we want to do is just, let's take a look at that later. Let's take a gander now at some Q&A for any question you'd like to ask, whether it's operationally, something about the airplane, whatever you want to talk about, please. Yes, go ahead. And I'll repeat the question if you don't hear it. Go. You know what, I don't know. I have to ask Greg about that. Is this the best preserved airplane? I'll tell you, it's freshly painted. It looks, when we walked in, it's magnificent. Absolutely magnificent.
Question is,
Jerry?
has there ever been any groundswell to receive out? I mean, I know the astronomical number to receive out, maybe getting one to start or run.
Oh. Go ahead, Jim.
This is the closest one because it still has the engines. It was flown in 1990, and all he did was drain the fluids out and tow it over here. And I did that.
Wow. So the engines are still internal?
The engines are still here. So
Okay,
I think it's the only
questions.
one.
We need Q&A. We have Q&A. We don't have a single, I can't do this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know the aircraft was able to outrun any other aircraft. So what about missiles, like surface to air or air-to-air missiles? How did it fare against those?
Tony?
I had a flight out of Okinawa back in 68. And I called it a double looper, and it went over Hanoi. down into Thailand to refuel, then come back and do it again. Well, on the first pass, 2 SA-2s were fired at me. And when they saw the film later on, it looked like they exploded about 1 mile below me. So 5,000 feet or so below me, and could they go faster? Well, I don't know. Maybe they could, couldn't then. SA-2, you know, when you're talking, like they say, 68, and they weren't maneuverable. And so you got acquisition radar that actually will allow them to fire at the enemy, which was us. And it's a 100-mile radius for them. And we go through that in 3 minutes. And so normally a 5-degree turn one way or another would give you more of an advantage. Plus, not only were we fast, we were above 85,000 feet, right at it, close to it, if we could, depending temperatures and that sort of thing. So that's the way it was in 68. And as far as I know, I was the first one in the Air Force, in the SR-71 that was fired at.
Come on, guys.
I got one.
Go. Yes, ma'am.
How many people did it take to build this airplane? Peter? A lot of people. Everybody was very dedicated. That's an interesting question. That really is. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is the FR-71 fly at the edge of space?
Okay, is the SR-71 at the edge of space? John? Are we at the edge of space?
Great question. And we flew around what was known or more commonly referred to today as near space. And we say that because we were in the upper 2% of the atmosphere when we were at 80,000 feet. Many people have asked me that question, did you get your astronaut wings in the SR-71? I said, no, you got to go quite a bit higher than that. But then again, we were in an airplane, so we're actually consuming and burning air, which is what distinguished us from rocket power aircraft like the any of the space boosters we use today, the X-15, that sort of thing. So big difference between the two, but I'd call that near space. Sometimes edge of space as well works.
Go ahead, sir. How many sunrises and sunsets do you typically see in that mission?
I'll keep going because I had a very memorable mission going up north. Jerry showed you that one of our missions out of England was to go almost straight north up along Norway and into the Barents Sea. And to this day, it amazed me that in the wintertime especially, you get this effect. You take off in the afternoon and in the UK, you're pretty far north, so the sun's going down. But you head up and get some gas off a tanker, and the sun is back up and shining brightly. And then you rocket northward towards the Barents, and now you're near the very high latitudes, about 70 degrees plus. And down goes the sun. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I looked at my watch to make sure I wasn't going crazy. And the moon is out, the stars are out. It is the middle of the night. Do our loop, as Jerry was describing there, come back out, the sun rises again. So I think I saw three cycles of the sun.
It's quite impressive when you see it, because if you get confused, you have to be careful, where you are, and never know not where you are. Always keep that. But the Barents missions, John, I think you would agree, were the most spectacular visual missions. Absolutely spectacular. Really spectacular. Go ahead, sir. I'll get you next.
What happens when you lose power from one engine?
When we lose an engine, engine loss.
Well, I had a training flight in the States, and I was heading from New Orleans directly to LA area, and about 90 miles short of Edwards Air Force Base. my left engine blew. And so we got the fire warning light, one way, and shut it down and proceeded downward to go subsonic. We still had fuel, so there was no big concern there. And flying ability was fine. There was no problems other than a slight yaw, which you could trim out of. And there was a 104 flying around from Edwards who looked it over for me and said, you know, he saw some signs of oil and stuff like that. And actually some of the stator blades had blown over to the other engine area, but no damage to that engine that I know of. It was still running perfectly. And we landed single engine, no problem, whatever. I'm here, aren't I?
I had heard that you're under power. It happened a few times where you have to rewrite the engine and feel your...
Oh yeah, the thrust loss, if you lose the inlet engine, you're losing about 75 to 80% of the thrust at the speed. So it's dynamic, but it's controllable. Oh, an unstart is different. The unstart, if you unstart the inlet, you're losing about 60 to 70% of the thrust on one side. So it's a little bit of a shock, but I think it's not over dramatized, but it's controllable, and we have automatic systems. You can manually reset it or auto resets, and I say 90% of the time it's an unstart, it recovers, and you press on your way. It's not that serious. I've got one before you, and I'll be with you. Ann, go ahead.
Hello. First, thank you for your service. On Troop 76, we have cookies here for any veteran. So later, if you see her, she would like to thank you for your service. Everyone in the room who's a veteran can grab a box of cookies. And the questions that my children have are, they want to know why the SR-71 is painted black. They want to know where the nickname Habu came from. And I guess I want to know, after you fly, do you lose weight?
Boy, can you answer the pain question? Robby will answer the lose weight question. Go ahead, Floyd. Make a choice. Why was the airplane painted black?
What's like a radiator on your car?
You're on.
Like a radio in your car, it's for heat dissipation. That's about it. It's just a color. I can't think of the other ones.
It keeps the airplane about 50 degrees cooler. Remember, the radiator in your car is not painted pink or white, it's painted usually black. Because it's also it's not a good reflector, it's a good re-radiator. So we keep the airplane, and Peter correctly, we keep it about 50 or 60 degrees cooler by painting it black. It's also kind of an anti-reflective paint. So there's two uses, but the thermal was the issue. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead, Peter.
It radiates the heat on the top of the airplane to outer space, because outer space is very, very cold, and it keeps the whole surface of the top surface of the airplane a lot cooler, so a lot less heat goes into the fuel, because we use the fuel as the heat sink, the environmental control system, and all of the things that need to be cooled.
And the second thing is losing weight. Basically, I personally, I went through about 2 quarts, maybe 3 quarts of Gatorade, because hydration is the key. You're breathing 100% oxygen in a suit, and you have to keep hydrated. So you're not really, you may lose a pound or 2 or a couple of pounds, but it's not that severe, but you have to keep hydrated. Most of us, and John, what did you use in that? I was at 2 big bottles of Gatorade in my seat. Go ahead.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. We carry bottles of water reduced with us to keep ourselves hydrated for all those reasons. Pure oxygen is very dry. The cockpit air is being circulating around the suit, very dry also. So that's very temporary, except we would know with the flight, we re-energize ourselves.
Hey, Robby, can you explain maybe getting the airplane ready, meaning if you have an optical camera, what's required? This is not an alert airplane. We don't sit in the airplane with a pressure suit waiting for SAT to call us to launch. It's really a complex
It's truly a complex process, maybe just with the OBC, which takes a lot of time. Go ahead.
OBC is the optical bar camera, and it's the camera that goes right on the nose. The nose that's one thing we're not really telling you much about. The nose comes off the aircraft fairly easy, and I say fairly easy, but it's still a trick. You remove the nose, you put a radar nose, an A-STARS nose, a ballast nose. Those are two different radars, and an optical bar camera. The optical bar camera takes 24 hours because we got to keep the elements heated on the camera itself. So everything, when a mission is put to us, we have to know what load we have. Not only optical bar, but we have 2 tech cameras. And if you're lucky, we have Dave Nolte here, who worked on the tech cameras. He's right back here. And those tech cameras are moved to the sides. And then you have 2 other equipment. The ELINT system on both sides as well. So we have all this equipment on the SR-71A where you don't have on the A-12. So all that stuff has to be coordinated, and your weight and balance of the aircraft. So it's an orchestrated work from the time they task us until the airplane takes off. I'd say 24 hours to 36.
Joe Howard, maybe you or Jack, the Habu patch, the Habu, how did we get the Habu name of the snake? Lou, can you? It was a snake. I think in World War II, the Japanese put snakes on every second island.
When the Blackbird came,
go ahead, Buzz, thank you,
Buzz. The Blackbird came to Okinawa. If you've ever seen a picture of it, it climbs rather rapidly. On the island, there's a cobra. And the Japanese, when they saw the way the bird took off, the Japanese name for this particular snake, which is poisonous, is Habu. So they started calling the aircraft Habu. The Air Force never formally named the airplane, so the Habu kind of became our symbol, and you wore a Habu patch once you'd flown an operational mission in the airplane. So that became the designation for those pilots and navigators who had the opportunity to fly an operational mission.
We as instructors do many, let's say, guests, Buzz, when we're talking about politicians during the Reagan era, they wanted to get their Mach 3 patch, but they also wanted to get their Habu patch. They got their Mach 3 patch. The Habu patch was an operational patch, and nobody who did not fly an operational mission ever got one of those patches. A couple of senators were a little upset they didn't get their Habu patch. No, sir, you just threw a bloody training story, and you were probably scared crap or something. Okay, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, that's 2 questions. One,
you're only allowed one here. Come on, you can.
As you were leading up to the final flights of the SR-71, and even the time leading up to knowing that it was going to come to an end, were there some capabilities or technologies that you still wanted to pursue that were no longer able to pursue that led to these other 2 other aircraft, the F-117 or even the unmanned aircraft that are flying now? Some capabilities just came to a stop because politicians or for whatever reason just halted it.
Ed and BC were test pilots at the site. Any comments on that, Ed? About A-STARS or something about the improvements that may not have happened to the airplane?
Many of the people who work on the SR-71 also designed the F-117. So I'm sure there's some of that technology is transferred also in the F-35. However, those newer airplanes are still classified. I don't know if it was transferred.
Go.
She's first.
Okay. Hi.
The key question was answered by the gentleman there. My question is, with the higher altitude and outside temperatures so much cooler, why was the plane still running at 550 degrees? And I have one more question.
Go ahead.
The other is at that high altitude, it was thinner air. So how did you compensate for the fuel-air ratio?
Would you please wait outside? Yeah, we got an answer for that. Okay, first of all, first question, John, think about it.
Great question, right? Because it's like 50 below zero or so outside. However, as I mentioned, we were flying around in the upper 2% of the atmosphere. That's still plenty of air. Obviously, the airplane had to fly. And Kelly Johnson described the airplane as kind of flying like a smooth rock skimming across the water. That's how it operated. But still, plenty of friction. So just the air rushing across the skin of the airplane at, Mach 3, 2,000 miles an hour, generated all that heat. And as Jerry mentioned, that was the big engineering challenge. What do you do with all that heat? It was amazing. One day I got to crawl inside the airplane to see what it looked like in there. And what the many factors that had to be built into the airplane to deal with that was, you probably read the airplane stretched in flight, several inches in length and a couple inches, I think, in width. So how do you do that with a metal airplane? And when you look at the plumbing inside the airplane, there are these little bellows in there that allow the piping actually stretch. Electrical wiring was slack when it was cold. When the airplane heated up, those wires would become more taut. And then on and on. Lubricants, fuel, nothing could be intolerant of heat. So really good question. And the second question was very...
I'll do the fuel, okay?
I'll turn that over to the main.
No, the thing is that what's the pressure as we're sitting right here? It's, let's say 14.7, rounded off to 15 pounds per square inch. Pressure on your body. Okay? At 85,000 feet with the inlet engine situation, the inlet pressure that the engine receives is over 17 pounds per square inch. Now think about that. The engine thinks it's 2,000 feet underground. But the problem is, if you would work on the air, the temperature in the front of the engine is 800 degrees Fahrenheit. So the engine was so well designed. The inlet air is 800 degrees, but there's 17 pounds per square inch in the front of the engine, which is 2 pounds above what you see right here. That's the inlet recovery system at 85,000 feet. It is amazing to watch the gauge and see. God, I got 16 psi. I'm sitting on the ground, and then you look at the compressor inlet temperature. It's 790 degrees. It's just truly amazing. The fuel flow on takeoff per engine. Your fuel flow question. The fuel flow on takeoff per engine is 72,000 pounds per engine. We're burning 144,000 pounds per hour totally. We only carry 80,000. We're burning 144,000 pounds. At speed, and DC, you can correct me, at speed, at Mach 3.15, you get the fuel flow down to 19,000 pounds per hour. And it's done with temperature settings. But I'm saying, we're burning 72,000 pounds per hour per engine for takeoff, and at Mach 3.15 at 80,000 feet, we're burning 19,000 pounds per hour. It is truly amazing, truly amazing. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what year did you guys hit Mach 3?
What year did we hit Mach 3? Well, the A-12 did that, did it not, Luke? The A-12 did Mach 3 back in the early 60s. In the early 60s. But the A-12 with the single-seater, that set the pace. Does that make sense? Oh. Okay. Go.
Frank Bird told me an interesting thing the other day. He said when they were doing some ground testing on the J-58 engine, that in order to simulate altitude conditions, they put the smaller engine in front and had to have the exhaust of that engine as the intent for the J-58 to do altitude testing. So, and just one personnel, this person told me, we just lost it.
Jerry, you can't hear anything.
Okay, yeah, speak up. Closer.
Is it on now? Okay, I apologize. Tony, we just lost the Deerman rig out. So and he was a YouTube pilot and all. Does he have some words to tell us about him? And then for Floyd and Robby, your experiences with the head of the field, with his maintenance at the field. And then just so I'm sorry, but your chief overview, I'll let you talk about it.
First, you have any comments about that? No?
Well, I'm not prepared to talk about you two at an SR-71 symposium. We can talk later.
Had to do with the the maintenance chief, Fred Conley.
Oh, Uncle Fred. I used to call him out I was very, very fortunate. I mean, I was the luckiest man in the world. I worked at DED4. And DED4, I had civilian contractors, subcontractors, associate contractors. Those guys were the best I've ever worked with. I could ask, and I had to learn how to speak civilian when I started working, because I was in the blue suit, and I had to work with them. Well, Fred Convey was the site manager of all the sites. He was based in Beale. And we had to go to Farmville Air Show one time. He had a sense of humor, but nobody knew about it. Because he was the man in charge for all the contractors. So we were at this big dinner, and I had the waitress bring him the bill for everybody. And Fred just got so upset, and I go, just joking. I could do that because I wore the blue suit, but he was a great guy to work with. And if I ever had a problem with anybody, I could call him. And that was with all the contractors. They were so good. And they were always on time. They always did their job. And we didn't have a problem. We only had issues, and we solved them. So that's the way you look at it.
We have a question in the bleachers.
My two questions are that if, like, any plane you can run on ethanol, which runs with it, and do any planes in here run on a special fuel blend?
That's the first question, right? Okay, so ethanol, you want to know something about the fuel, correct? Okay, Floyd, can you take that? He wants to know maybe why we're not running on ethanol? Or do we run on ethanol? Can we run on ethanol? Okay, can we run on ethanol and something about the fuel?
I didn't hear the whole question.
Okay, he wants to know if we did special fuels and can the airplane run on ethanol?
We use JP7, which is a very safe fuel. It has a flash point, I believe, about 140 degrees. We're operating the airplane on the ground. It's leaking on the fuel on the ground. We have electrical equipment. We have gas-powered equipment running. It's still very, very safe. The fuel is the only airplane that I believe we use is JP7. But I don't think we run on ethanol.
Okay.
Jack Daniels, yes.
Your second question, you had two questions, correct? Or was that the question?
Can they run on ethanol, and do you guys run on any special fuel?
Yeah, those are okay. We run on JP7, and we cannot run on ethanol, the plane would blow up. Go.
So we're talking about all the technology in the SR-71. Maybe switch it a little bit in regards to the first declassified at this point, but what kind of information or what kind of, what was the SR-71 coming back with as a spy plane that gave us what we needed to know? Maybe you could tell some stories about what you were able to see looking back.
I'll take a shot at that. I was a backseater, so one of the primary reasons we were back there was to run all the sensor equipment. And before becoming a reconnaissance systems officer, I was a weapons systems officer in R4, so I did tactical reconnaissance there. And that was the mission of the airplane. We didn't carry weapons. We were there to collect intelligence of varying kinds. So you may have read about different kinds of sensors we had with us. Some, as Robby mentioned, we had optical cameras with us of different kinds. We could put a very high-resolution radar in those of the airplane, so we're an all-weather collector. And then we also had some electronic intelligence packages on board too. So the SR could cover 100,000 square miles per hour. That was the thing about the airplane. We were reconnaissance. We didn't, like the U-2, it's both reconnaissance and surveillance. Surveillance generally you stay in the area and keep track of what's going on. We were in and out. And I'll give you an example. It actually relates to the airplane we have here in the museum. First of all, my front seater and I delivered this airplane here in 1990, so it's got a special place in my heart. I think it's my last flight in SR-71 But we also flew that airplane on one of the Persian Gulf missions, which Jerry passed by here a little bit ago. Mac McHenry here with us as well, did one also. About a 12,000-mile round trip, 5 refuelings, and many war stories to tell from that one. But the reason we were sent there is because we did not have very good, the intelligence community did not have very good coverage of what was going on in the Persian Gulf at the time. And if you remember the late 80s, this is 1987, the issue of the day was that our oil tankers were being threatened by Iranian terrorists, basically. And they were using gunboats to attack the tankers and trying to disrupt the flow of oil out of the Middle East. We, on that day, brought back some of the highest resolution photography of that area, including details about where these boats were operating and that sort of thing. Because the folks who planned the mission had put us on tracks where we could get perfect sun angles and so forth to see a lot of detail, we were able to update the intelligence database with optical imagery. And that was just one example of many kinds of intelligence collection we did.
I think, Buzz, correct me if I'm wrong, but the optical bar camera, it's still sensitive, but we're still using it. We're still using the optical bar camera. That's the only really sensitive part of the program now. But from 80,000 feet, the resolution is under 12 inches. Under 12 inches. So can we see a license plate on your car? The answer is yes. Can we tell if it's your license plate? Probably no. But remember, if you have good, I think I'm about right, Buzz. Go ahead.
10 cameras on the side were controlled by a computer. If any one of you were in the parking lot and Jerry flew over at 85,000 feet at 35 miles a minute, the film would show you holding this piece of paper. You can't read the writing. You can identify you as an adult male, adult female. We had harder times with children. And most of the time we could tell you what kind of a car you were driving. That was the film quality that this airplane produced.
And when was it designed? About 1963. And it's still state-of-the-art for wet film cameras. Still state-of-the-art. And we're still using it. 1, 2, and I'll get you next. Okay, go ahead. 1, 2,
What was the experience like when you had an unsupervised
Oh, it was wonderful. Kept you awake. Well, the main thing that occurs usually is right at first is you're going to bang your head along the cockpit. And so normally you don't get a headache. And you get going with your RSO in the back on what you're supposed to do if you didn't already automatically know it. But that was so it was good because we were a team. And almost like a co-pilot situation, except he didn't have the stick or throttle. But at any rate, like Jerry had mentioned earlier, I believe that it'll either maybe find its own cure automatically, or you go manual. And if that doesn't adjust, then you have other problems. You'll be letting down because probably you want to maintain the higher altitude, number one, and speed. And it can fix itself sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, you're going to land earlier than you wanted to.
remember the issue, the inlet air not only provides propulsion, but the inlet air provides cooling for the engine. So instantaneously, within about a second, and DC, I think I'm correct here, it's about 4 psi, it drops to about 4 to 5 psi. Yeah, you look at the inlet compressing the pressure. So we're actually blowing air out in front of the inlet. So it goes from 15 to 17 psi and drops very rapidly to 4 psi. And that tells you there's little air coming through the inlet itself to cool the engine. So the problem has to be solved. It has to be solved. And I say with the new control system, we have 95% of the time it's solved. Every once in a while, you may have to go manual and reset it, and it reset itself. But the problem is you have to watch the engine temperature, because as this happened, the engine temperature is going up. It's going up. You have to be very careful. So it has to be solved, and most of the time it was solved. But it's kind of exciting. It's really kind of exciting. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and then we have one back here, and I'm going to get you. Okay, I promise to get you. Go ahead, sir.
Why did they take the SR-71 out of service?
General Howard, can you address that or not, sir? Why did they take the SR out of service? Okay, no, I think it was a combination of what? There was no uplink, PC, there was no uplink downlink. We had wet film, so what has to happen? I flew the Libyan sortie, so what has to happen? We land, nobody cares about me, you care about the backseater, download it. Before the engines are shutting down, the panels are open, the people are downloaded. Where does the camera film have to go? Buzz, to Washington, D.C. It has to go from Mildenhall to Washington, D.C. and be processed, which is about a 5-hour delay. Well, if you had an uplink downlink, what? You get instantaneous response. And that was one of the issues. That was one of the issues that kind of drove it. But still, the OBC is still a camera of use because it's really, really, really good. I think politics and age and the amount of information we're getting, and correct me if I'm wrong, Buzz, that we needed time-related information which we weren't getting. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, there was one here, and then I'm going to get the person over there. Go ahead, sir.
Finish up my last question. Were satellites starting to come into use and filling the void?
They're very predictable. Remember, we know, you know exactly to the second when the satellite is going to be overhead. And that's one of the differences. That's one of the differences.
My question is, were U2 use and the Blackbird use overlap, or was it one end and the other end?
Can you handle that or not?
U2 still flying today, 24 hours a day, somewhere in the world. They overlapped many, many years because like Tony Bezacqua here and General Howard, they left the program. They didn't stop flying U2s. They just added the U2. The SR was intended to fly in hostile airspace. The U2 is a much more vulnerable platform. But the U2 also developed a data link early on so that the decision makers could see the information measured in minutes, not hours a day.
And remember what John said, there's a difference between surveillance, that's a very good point. There's a difference between surveillance and reconnaissance. Nobody asked us to fly over the same spot twice. Oh, in fact, we argue with engineers all the time. Oh, well, you know, if you miss the target, you can make a 360, and you can get back and you can fly it over again. Well, let's see. The turn radius is 75 miles. So multiply that by what? Multiply that by, so it takes us almost 300 miles to make a 360 to come over the same space twice. And also, another 5,000 pounds of gas.
Well, you can reduce speed and then...
No. If we reduce speed, we burn more gas.
More gas.
Thank you. At Mach 2.8, we burn more gas than at 3.2. The plane is more efficient at Mach. As you go faster, the inlet pressure goes up and the fuel flow goes down. If you want to make money, you go faster. You don't go slower.
Was it a common pool of pilots, or they were specific to either airplane?
Fly any airplane. No, any airplane that's available. There was no. I don't know, Buzz. I don't think so. Two different group of pilots. Okay, now, hold it. Way in the pictures. And you know what? Do you have a mic? Great, put it right to you here and tell us what you want to know.
My question is, who was the last person to fly the plane?
Who was the last person to fly the SR-71? Well, operationally, and from the man is sitting right back there.
Actually, at the time we thought it would be the last supersonic flight, but it wasn't.
I had the great honor of flying the airplane at the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian asked us to set a coast-to-coast speed record that called the public's attention to what a great airplane had been for our country for 25 years. So on March the 6th, 1990, we thought that would be the last supersonic flight of the airplane. As it turned out, the airplane was reactivated in 1994, and it flew some months. How long did it fly, John? About a year? Anyway, so our flight in 1990 was not the last supersonic flight. And then also after we delivered the airplane in 1990 to the Smithsonian, there were several subsonic flights to various museums around the country. So my flight was not actually the last flight of SR-71.
Go ahead, sir.
Do you ever get lost or lose your bearings?
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question? So I can repeat it?
Did you ever get lost or lose your
Okay,
bearings?
did you ever get lost?
Or lose your bearings?
Or lose your bearings?
Well, I think he was looking at me when he asked that question. Well, first of all, the old saying in a TC airplane is if you're the weapons systems officer and you don't know where you are, you demand the pilot to tell you that because you're the navigator and you have a right to know where you are. The navigation systems on the SR-71 were absolutely phenomenal. A lot of us came out of other TC airplanes. I was in the Tactical Air Force. You know, on some good days it would be fine, on some bad days you'd have to make up for that. The 1960s airplanes primarily used inertial navigation systems, and they had a lot of mechanics to them. Today it's software and global positioning system and whatnot. So happily, no, I was never lost in the SR-71 because if you are, you're getting lost in a much bigger hurry than any other airplane. A mile every 2 seconds, you're going the wrong way, you're in someplace you shouldn't be in a big hurry. So not only did we have this fantastic astro-inertial system, but we also had a backup kind of conventional inertial navigation system. And I'm sure there's plenty to tell you about those systems, but the accuracy for what was basically an inertial navigation unit updated by a telescope. And I was one of the last general navigators actually learned to use a sextant and do all the triangulation and whatnot. This airplane was doing it completely automatically and could track stars day or night. As soon as you taxi out from underneath the hangar, the telescope was already finding stars and calculating your position. Just a phenomenal system.
If you get up on the gantry, you look right behind the rear cockpit, you'll see a little piece of glass. That's R2-D2. That's the Astro Tracker. And it's plus or minus about 300 feet. Now remember, you go, I do presentation, no, plus or minus 300 feet. Oh, my cell phone can do better than that. But guess what? What do you need for a cell phone? You need satellites for a cell phone. The Astro Tracker was totally independent. And as we taxied out of the bond, we taxied up the taxiway, in the B model or the A model, we said, watch for the update. Doink, doink. And we would update, and the Astro Tracker would take over. It was truly, in fact, didn't they have to redo the coordinates of Palmdale when they always had to redo the coordinates of Palmdale because the Astro Tracker was so good. This is a personal comment. Getting lost, you don't get lost. You can go through 50 turns. You know, back set 20, turn coming up in 5 seconds, this is turn 46, especially in the Baltic. You're turning high bank turns, high bank turns, high bank turns. The pilot kind of flies the airplane. This is not a critique, please, that like the RSO is not there. Never lose sight of where you are, ever, ever, ever. But on the other side of the story, I take this whole thing, and I only flew one mission with John. I was really disappointed with that. I didn't very much do that. But the RSO, when you think of a symphony, the RSO is really the director. He's the conductor. We're kind of the first violinists. We're trying to keep the pointy end forward. You know, he's in charge of all the stuff that everybody wants and needs. And he's setting the mission. He's setting the pace. When I'm upside down behind the tanker, the RSO is saying, You got 30 seconds to go, you're doing great, you're level, we got 30 seconds to go, we got our gas, and we punch off. You know, it's those things in the back, and you're trained so well. You know at night that the front seat needs a little help. You know, especially when you go into a 30-degree bank turn in the middle of nothing. And the back seat is saying, rolling out of the turn, you're doing real good, we got 2 minutes to go, we're up to 70,000 pounds. And, oh, this is back set, no, oh, is this back set 21 or back set 19? This is back set 21, not back set 19. So it's this total communication where the RSO is this orchestra. You know, he's not playing the violin, he's not moving the throttles, but he's setting the pace. And it's just a total communication. It's a degree of beauty. And we don't talk to each other very, very much. We really don't. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows what's going on. And it's all training. The training program instills that you trust each other and you never lose sight of where you are. Ever, ever, ever. Go ahead. 1, 2. I'll get you in a second, okay? Go ahead. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Can any of the panel comment on any espionage efforts that were directed towards the program by our adversaries?
Adversarial comments? I'm trying to think of that one. Go ahead, John, please.
Well, sadly, somebody in our unit actually tried to sell some of our secrets when I was there. And, long story short, he imagined himself to be a spy, and but he's not a very good one. He was discovered before anything got passed and arrested, and a lot of time in jail because of that. But you know, collector, foreign nations are always after our technology, and it's true today more than ever because of the electronic communications and enable them to find and steal it and get their hands on it. It's much more physical in our days, but yes, wherever you were, you had to be very conscious who you spoke to and what you spoke about, and but espionage was and is alive.
Go ahead, ma'am, you're on the floor.
Were crashes and like very serious difficulties common?
For crashes and serious difficulties common. Robby?
Well, in the beginning of the program, there was a learning curve, and that's when they had major problems. There was one aircraft that went down in the Philippines, and that was after 17 years. And that was how good pilots and RSOs were trained together. They knew what to do, they went over that checklist like crazy. So the learning curve for flying the airplane had to be astronomically good.
Nobody's asked how fast the airplane really went. Someone asked a question. How fast the airplane really went?
Structurally, how fast could it
You
go?
know, the limit was temperature. The limit was the engine temperature. You can get up to about 838, 40 temporarily, but the airplane burned itself up. Literally burned itself up. And it was the engines. But I think I talked to Pat Bledsoe. They did 3.47 in the test phase. BC, you can. Pat said our limit was 3.3. We flew a 2.8, 3.0, and 3.15. 2.8 for high bank turns and tight missions, which in the Gulf. 3.0 was our normal mission. We boosted up to 3.15 for high threat areas, and if we had a launch, we had authority to go 3.3. Remembering that Mach is dependent on temperature. It kind of varies. But 3.3, but you're not concerned about the speed, you're concerned about the temperature limits of the airplane. The plane, if you lose an airplane, you have to keep the whole front of the airplane chimes below about 140 to keep things reasonably cool. Remember, the average temp is 550, the windscreen is 620, the exit velocity is 3,400, so the thermal properties were just enormous to solve. And remember, there's a cable going from the stick back to the. This is not a fly-by-wire. Imagine we have 100 feet of cable going from a stick back to the elevator, and you climb up. It's minus 60 degrees. You're behind the tanker. You get to cruise. It's Plane heats up to 550. You come down, you go behind the tanker, it's minus 60. You go back up 5 times. Does anybody have any control problems? No. How did it work? For us, it was a mystery. It all worked. I don't see how they got the tension in the cables or the bellows or whatever they did. And you look at the back of the airplane, you pull the panel off and you go, how the hell does this thing even work? And it worked every single time. I've never had a control problem. Never. I mean, it's just amazing. And it's a cable airplane. There are cables going everywhere. It's truly, it's just overwhelming when you see it. Go. Yes, sir.
You're on. Actually, 3 quick questions. Was the A-12 originally to be a supersonic interceptor? What kind of G-forces would you pull in a high-performance term at 3.5 Mach?
Gotcha.
And the cones on the engines, I understand those move in and out, and is that what affects your pressure?
Interceptor, Tony, can you take that for the A-12?
Well, the A-12 is slightly smaller than the SR-71 and similar speeds and altitudes, I understand. They did not have a navigator, carried only a camera, whereas the SR carried multiple sensors. The pilot always went faster than the navigator because he was in front. And as it says right up here on your wall, we went 2193.167 as a record, world speed record. So, however, that would change with temperatures and so forth. That day and that recordation, that was the speed. Some have gone higher than the 85, whatever they claim, and there's no argument. I mean, there's a recording somewhere in our recording mechanism that we had in those planes. When you talk A-12, it's all CIA. Oh, the interceptor.
Designed as an interceptor.
Oh, they were going to, well, the YF was supposed to be a fighter, but as far as I know, wasn't that the same one as far as that had the D-21? And so, no? Okay, that was a YF-12, so yeah, I don't know everything, but almost. Hold on. Don?
First flight of the YF was August 63. Yeah. And the A-12 had already been in existence
And they quit the program because of problems and expenses, I suppose.
Yeah, the third question, the spikes, the inlet spikes are critical in managing. Yeah, it's supersonic, covering supersonic flow to subsonic flow. So the spike can move aft from the ground to Mach 3.2. The spike generally moves, it's 26 inches, it's about 3 feet, and they move aft, which is very unusual. Other than things they move forward, they move aft. Second question, you want to have to get the second forces? Oh, gee, look at the airplane. You know, it carries 80,000 pounds of gas. It carries more fuel than it weighs. The highest G-forces you'll find is the pitch out in the traffic pattern. Rarely above 2 Gs, ever above 2 Gs. But we can maintain a 47-degree bank at 80,000 feet at Mach 3. Think about that. We can maintain a 47-degree bank at 80,000 feet at Mach 3. That, yes. And it's not for us, 47 degrees, 45, plus we have 2 for variation. But 45 was a high bank turn, and the plane would roll into a high bank turn at 78,000 feet, not even budge. Push the throttles up another 2,000 pounds, roll into a 45-degree bank turn, right around the plane. That's how good it was. Really, really good. Go. Oh, it's 1.2, 1.3. A 60-degree bank turn is 2 Gs. So a 45-degree bank, 1.4. It's nominal. It's nominal.
That's not 58. Go, yes, sir.
On these long flights, was wearing a pressure suit ever an issue in terms of comfort or making movements within the cockpit?
Yeah.
Tony can speak from both perspectives. I did the one long mission I mentioned on the airplane, and the whole pressure suit weighed about 50 pounds, I think. So there were techniques you could use to keep it partially inflated, keep some of the weight off your shoulders, but much more strenuous in the front seat because the pilot had to handle, in our case, 5 refuelings. And that's a physical activity, as Jerry mentioned. It was a cable airplane. So more demanding on the pilot than the back seat, but it was enough after 11 hours. Now for you two people, that's just a day at the job, a day at the site there. They fly those long missions in the exact same pressure suits as we used. One thing you had to get used to was there were some circuit breakers near the back of each side of the panel. So once in a while, you had to lift up your arm and kind of look under your arm to see things. The suit was too bulky to actually turn very far. But you learn how to minimize your exertion levels in your airplane. Tony?
Well, you answered it pretty well, John, but you had a condom type situation for any movements for the wet stuff. But the other thing you're stuck with. The poor guys that have to undress you have to handle that. And I know it has happened, so I've heard, and I know it did in the partial pressure suit in the U2 that we had to wear, and that was those tight things versus what you see with these spacesuits now, they're full pressure suit. And I equate that to being like a turtle in a shell, whereas the partial pressure suit is like being in a corset. And you can't get too uncomfortable because you damn sure don't want it to go bad on you. If you lost pressurization, that's what saves your life.
First thing you do when you close your visor, you have to scratch your nose. You put your visor down and say, oh, I know I should have scratched my nose. I got 7 hours of this, and it's just kind of psychological.
These short-nosed guys have that problem.
I appreciate that, Tony. In the back, go ahead.
Yeah. Did you ever meet with any of the Soviet pilots after the fall of communism?
Finding my wife just whistling in my ear is very interesting. I became an instructor and I had a large underwater robotics program, and the Russians in Vladivostok, Russia got into it. So I was invited to Vladivostok for 10 days. Very interesting piece. It took me 7 weeks to get my visa stamped. I had to go to the embassy or the consulate in San Francisco 3 times for various reasons. And we met in UC San Diego, and we're sitting at a table, and the Russian team is sitting there. We invited them over for lunch, and we're sitting there. So one of my students told this Russian, he says, "Did you know what Mr. G did?" He said, "He flew the SR-71. And the Russian's eyes got like this. And he said, "My name is Dmitri. I was in Petropavlovsk when you were coming by. I was watching you." And it was like this conversation, this whole conversation erupted. So, to make a long story short, I get a note from him, and he says, "Danny, there's a good conference in Vladivostok. You want to come to the school?" So I said, I'm looking at airfare. 5,000 here, 6,000 here. He calls me back. He says, "Danny, this is Dmitri." He says, "Tuesday morning, you go to the Aeroflot website. It's only $1,400. I said, "Dmitri, how the hell do you know this?" He says, "Gary, this is Vladivostok. I know. I go to the website, punch the button, round trip from here to Moscow. Got on Russian Aeroflot. It's like, can you be kidding me? $1,420 round trip. Dmitri says, "I know.
That's Vladivostok. But he went crazy. He said, I was watching you. Go ahead, guys. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Has any woman ever flown the SR-71?
Has what? Has a female ever flown? I think we had Von Mayer, who was an RSO. She was a vacciner, and she was the first female to fly the SR-71. But we didn't have a pilot because it was in the days when females were really not allowed into combat. Now that changed. We have a lot of female pilots. But you have to remember, this is like 30, 40 years ago. So at NASA, she was the first female to fly the SR-71. Am I correct? I think that's true, Buzz?
She's the only one that ever performed as a crew member.
As a crew member. So she's the one female. That is correct.
There were VIP rides for some women.
Yeah, but never a qualified person.
Can you talk a little bit about how the shape of the plane came about? And then I have a second question. Was it difficult to fly at Mach 3 and drive home at 50 miles an hour?
I have another story about that. Anybody about the design of the airplane?
I didn't see that.
He wants to know the unique design of the airplane. Boy, I'll tell you, that's, well, they went through, I think, John, go ahead. I mean, they went through 10 designs in 1 year. It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, that was in about 14-month period, wasn't it?
Right, yeah, that was the arcade.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Now think about that. We can't design a toothpick in a year. Kelly Johnson and his team goes through pencil designs, goes through virtually 12 designs in 13 months. 12 designs. That's, I mean, it's truly amazing, truly amazing. And the other question, I'm sorry, go ahead, I apologize. Oh, driving. Anybody have a story? Because I don't quickly. A buddy of mine, we're flying out to Little River. It's a nice little airport on the coast of Mendocino, a beautiful place. So we go down to Sacramento, and he has his airplane, a Cessna 180. So we take it off from Sac Executive, and we're climbing out. For us, 2 minutes to 25,000 feet. Rocket up to 25,000 feet. We've just been through 5,000 pounds of gas. So we're taking off from Sacramento, we're climbing through 1,000. We're climbing through 2,000. 20 minutes later, we're up at 6,500, it's hot. So he turns to me and he says, Jerry, how do you like flying at Mach 0.15? It took us, we're doing 82 knots. It took us an hour and 20 minutes to get someplace. It took me 2 minutes to get to. He says, how do you like it flying at Mach 0.015? We all have stories like that. We all have great stories. Come on, guys. Yes, way in the back. Yell it out, because I can't give you a mic.
Right. What was your stall speed like at altitude at 80,000 feet?
Matt, what was the one again? I'm sorry?
Stall speed.
That was not even a question, meaning for us. Meaning, you were okay. First of all, we weren't going that fast. We're only going about, indicated we're doing about 500, but we fly in Keys. We're only doing about 400 knots. And we're never getting below 250, so stall speed was never an issue. If we had a stall speed, we'd have a leather aircraft going on. I mean, really, really serious stuff. Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
What were the handling qualities of the Blackbird at Mach 3?
You can hand fly the airplane and Mach through the plane. Okay, if you come to, we have about 7 minutes left here. If you come to the cockpit presentation, where's Mike? Mike's got the stick. The stick is like a woman. You know, there are people who dance with a lady. May I use you for a second? There are people who dance with a lady like this. Right?
Watch out for Mike.
The stick, for a pilot, you don't even have to look at the instruments when you're subsonic. The plane tells you what's going on. It's such a beautiful airplane to fly around. It is a gorgeous airplane to fly subsonic around. Yeah, it's telling you exactly what's going on. Subsonically, we're flying straight and level. So remember, a 1 degree pitch change is 3,000 feet. So we're doing in tens of degrees. So it's a very structured environment. But once you get in the traffic pattern, it is a picture. You don't have to look at the instruments, you know what's going on. You feel it. And if you come to the presentation, we'll show you the stick. And it's like dancing with a woman. Not like this. Not like this. It's like dancing with a woman. I'm very serious about that. Keep going. Go ahead. You've got a couple left.
I got a couple questions. First one, wasn't this building like a pocket? Followed up with, what was the size of your maintenance car? And what was the most difficult maintenance action you had to ever take?
Okay, Tony, you take the cockpit, and Robby, you take the maintenance of
The size of the cockpit?
It's the visibility.
Oh, visibility.
Visibility, right.
Why look outside? I mean, you're not going to see anything flying by you, or passing you up, or honking the horn. All you do is see aliens. Too many of you believe that. No way. Anyway, no, there isn't much to look at outside, and well, when you get low and slow, it's a different story, of course. And it wasn't bad. You could land without a help, you know, like a vehicle telling you how high you are or something, but in the U2, it's a different story, but that's a different subject. So one thing I'd like to tell you though for sure is everything about the SR-71 is declassified, and you can find a ton of stuff on, just go Google it. You can go habu.com, you can go roadrunnersinternational.com, you can find all kinds of stuff. Even bios on some heroes like Pat over here, you know, thinks he's a hero anyway.
We've got time for probably 2 more questions, because I want to show you something really, really important. Go ahead.
Do you want?
No, wait. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Thank you.
There was there's several major repairs, but 2 of them are the most difficult. We changed wing, outboard wing in Stavanger, Norway. And then we also had the aircraft that they put ASAR's nose on it. They flew a air show, and the airplane was pitched up a little bit more because the pilot at that time was used to the standard ASARs. So it pitched up. She landed all right and flew an FRG mission, the Germany mission, the next day. And then we found a major fuel leak at the 715 station. We found that after we drained fuel, we found 2 major bolts at the bottom of the 715 snapped. 36 bolts across the smaller ones. It broke all the way around. So that at that point, we had to send off a message to SAC, and I don't know if I should talk about this one. But at that time, Colonel Cunningham was my commander, and Pinsky said, we're not going to repair the airplane. You guys got enough. I had civilian Lockheed employees. You have everybody you need. I didn't. I needed engineering. And so I told my commander, like I was supposed to, the chain man, I have to go above his head. And he forgot we're in the Air Force, we're here to fly airplanes. So he got fired. I had to do what I had to do. You know, you're here to fly aircraft. And I'll do anything my boss tells me to do, but, you know, I probably get problems with that. But anyway, we had to x-ray the aircraft because you're going through 1.75 titanium. Nobody had done it on an airplane in an airfield before. I had to find somebody that could do it. So I found a company that did off-derrick oil wells that could do it. You know, all this technology was not at my fingertips. I didn't have Google, I didn't have phones. I had to run around and figure out who did I get a hold of. I had to get contracting, the right contract, and I had to have them sign. You go to a meeting and say, I need 1.75 titanium X-ray. They said, what for? Can't tell you. Why? Can't tell you. Where at? Can't tell you. You know, all these, I can't tell you until you sign these releases, and I want to see what you can do for me. So all these little steps that these guys don't know we do it. And it was a really hard problem. We had to fix a way to stand the airplane up, so when we segregated the airplane in half and put it back together, we had to make special jacks. And at that time I put something together, and that's how I got involved into going to school, because Rene Lorenzo, the engineer that came out, said, you need to go to school, you need to get your degree. You quit being a maintenance guy, you become an engineer. Thanks to him, I went to pursue the education. But all that work was intense.
Okay, we got one more quick question, then I'm going to show you something really special. It has to be a brief question, because we're almost out of time. Go ahead.
I'll try to, I'll ask for as short an answer as possible. How difficult was maintenance on it? Was it easy to repair craft where you could just kind of put things, or was it very finicky and fragile?
Don? Maintenance, finicky, was the maintenance straightforward or finicky and fragile?
We spent approximately 2 years training the crew chief properly to be crew chief. Things were not standard. Is that working?
Yes.
Many different reasons. I don't want to get into all of it here, but we couldn't use any standard tooling. Everything had to be special. All the ground support equipment was special. Every part that had on the aircraft had to be tested for compatibility with titanium, because when you expose the aircraft to over 450 degrees temperature, you have chemical reactions from cadmium, from chlorides, fluorines, it would burn a hole in the airplane. All of that had to be taken into consideration during the maintenance. All the equipment was special. Our supply was a completely separate warehouse from standard. We couldn't intermix any parts. So wasn't standard maintenance? Definitely not.
What you're about to see has nothing to do with numbers. It has to do with people. Ben Rich, who built the inlet, helped Peter go through the thermal properties, and the man, Kelly Johnson. And he's the guy. Listen and just enjoy.
Dear Kelly, you and I have never met. I'm not a former SR-71 pilot or RSO. I wasn't a member of your design team at the Lockheed Skunk Works or on the assembly line that built the Blackbird. Nor was I a member of the Air Force at Beale, Mildenhall, or Kadena, who kept the Blackbirds flying. I'm not even an airplane buff in the classic sense. I'm just a person that had the privilege of being around your SR-71 Blackbird, and it was an experience I will remember intensely for the rest of my life. There's just something about your Blackbird, Kelly, that words don't adequately describe. Anyone who has been near a Blackbird and felt its presence knows what I'm talking about. It's a feeling in your gut, and instantly you want to be part of it. Part of what I call the Blackbird family. Today, Kelly, you are being honored for your design work on the SR-71, and justly so. To me, the SR-71 is not only your greatest aircraft design, it is perhaps the greatest aircraft ever built. I've heard it said that you considered the Blackbird the most fascinating challenge of your career. No wonder. It was a design that was so advanced that everything that touched it had to be new. New manufacturing processes, new tools, new materials, a whole new approach. You built an operational stealth aircraft a decade before most of the world had even heard the term. It was a design so far ahead of its time that it retired before time could catch up with it. In times of crisis, the Blackbird provided 6 presidents with a unique and critical view of the world. The Blackbird served this country for just over a quarter of a century. In that entire time, it stood in a class of one. To me, the Blackbird is much more than a technical marvel. It's an airplane that gets inside you, an aircraft that causes the adrenaline to flow just by looking at it. Kelly, your Blackbird is the stuff dreams are made of. It's the model plane sitting in a young child's room, proof that everything is possible, that the sky isn't the limit. And it's the poster hanging on the office wall of a middle-aged engineer, testimony that yes, even in the real world, miracles do occur. The SR-71 embodies all that excites people about aerospace. Its crew seems part pilot, part astronaut. The Blackbird itself appears part airplane, part spacecraft. The typical Blackbird fan is a cross-section of America. It's your grandfather, your niece, your son. It's the wide-eyed young kid that buys an aircraft book at the National Air and Space Museum. It's the family that traveled hundreds of miles to an air show just to see a Blackbird in person. It's the people on the Air Force Base that stopped what they were doing to watch an SR take off. Everyone, every time, no matter how many times they'd seen it before. And it's the pilot who last flew the Blackbird 20 years ago, who has the look in his eye that says, I flew the best aircraft ever made. The look that can barely contain the desire to get in an SR just one more time and light the burners. When Blackbird 972 made its final record-setting flight to Dulles Airport, I watched the television with mixed emotions. This was the Blackbird's final flight. An aircraft that was the very definition of speed and power would fly no more. But my sadness was tempered by the knowledge that this plane would now truly belong to the nation, coming to rest in the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. Now millions would be able to do what I had done, be near a Blackbird, be part of the family. Kelly, in the years to come, whenever I want to experience your airplane's majesty, I will remember the time I spent with your Blackbird. The smell of JP7 fuel, the feel of it on the soles of my shoes, the sound of an air starter wind up, the TED ignite, and I'll put on the film that we shot during those incredible weeks in 1987. I'll watch it, feel it, be part of it again. Because in movies, Kelly, like in our memories, your Blackbird will fly forever. Congratulations, Kelly, and thank you. Devin Honker, Assistant Cameraman, Blackbird, the movie.
For a couple of minutes over, it's been a pleasure to present to you. Absolutely.